timer's rolling. We're at 10 minutes, but I'll be done in 9, I hope. Okay, so first things first. I always say have 2 pencils. A sharp pencil, make sure you're bringing 2 pencils every day. A sharp pencil I keep in my right ear. A dull pencil I keep in my left ear. But I don't know how that's going to work out with the masks. So some people are going to learn best by reading through this. Some people are going to learn best by watching the demonstrations or watching the video. But I always say the first thing you want to do is scan through the pages from about 214 to about 230, because kids sometimes have a hard time accepting that these are the name of the views. And I go, I'm not the one that named them, but if you look in the book here, top view is the blue view, red view is the front view, right view is the green view, okay? So all of these views are named in the book here. There's really 6 views of an object. We are doing 3 views. If I asked you to just trace the views in the object, then it'd be pretty straightforward. And I go, this is kind of what you're doing, almost like a tracing, but you're using the measuring from the book, the blueprints, and then you're going to lay out the different views of the object. Top view, front view, side view. Notice how you project the views down here and over from the side view to the front. That's a real valuable page on 229, okay? And then it gets into centering the view, and the other thing I want to show you out of the book here is on page 237 is where the actual drawing problems are, and it has on here, on 237, the different views, which are a little bit different from the book. 1 through 4 are the same, but then they change a little bit, okay? In other words, on the back side of the sheet here, it has the objects also, but a little different from the book, just the order's different. It doesn't really matter, but drawing 1 is the same as what you see on page 237 there, except I added a few extra dimensions, okay? Then, on the previous side of this, I have the steps for doing a multi-view drawing. Step number 1, the border and the title block. For right now, just worry about putting a 1/2-inch border. Border's like a picture frame. Step 2, the centering box. You want it centered on the page. So normally, I will give you the dimensions to start with, and then after a little while, you can come up with those dimensions on your own. Complete the 2 given views inside the centering box. So like on drawing 2, if you look at drawing 2, they give you the front view and the side view, and you have to come up with the top view, okay? And on drawing 3, they give you the top view, and the side view, you have to come up with the front view, okay? So when you tape the object, this is super important. You're going to tape it, if you're right-handed, you're going to tape it to the left side of your desk, and there's a reason for that. I'll show you what it is here. I make sure that my paper, this is so important that your paper is lined up with your T-square, okay? Make sure it is parallel to the T-square, and the T-square is tight against the edge of the desk. Otherwise, every line on there will be off, okay? So, I have up here on the board behind me, I want to teach you to be accurate and efficient, A&E. You want to get drawings very accurate and very efficient. In other words, you want to get really good, and then you want to get really fast, okay? I'll tell you about my teacher back in middle school, Mr. Rios. He used to hire kids who were really good at the drawing and really fast. In fact, I have a shirt on here today, Johansson Architecture, and on this shirt, a friend of mine opened up an architecture business over in Portland area, and he worked for my drafting teacher. My drafting teacher would pay about $20 an hour to middle school kids and high school kids to do drafting and drawing. And my friend Carl, who now owns this Johansson Architecture, he ended up working for him, and now he's an architect. So he would hire that. So my teacher was a very smart guy. He'd go around, figure out who was really good, and then he'd hire them. Not a bad plan. But he'd look for, are you good and are you fast? First of all, you want to get really good, and then you want to get fast. So accurate and efficient, okay? So part of being efficient is, for instance, I come over here and I need to do my measuring for my borders. So to start with, I look at step 1 on the border. It's just a 1/2-inch border all the way around. So I normally draw everything light to start with, But if I'm doing a 1/2 inch all the way around, I mark it on all 4 sides, and right off the bat, my pencil tip broke, so I got a second pencil here ready to go. So I mark 1/2 inch on all 4 sides, and that's your border, okay? The border is like the picture frame, and I go up a 1/2 inch, and then I go up another 1/2 inch for my title block, which we will get to eventually. On all of your horizontal lines, use the T-square to make the lines. On the vertical lines, use your T-square either on your triangle, so you can rest it on your, okay, just like this. I have my T-square tight against the edge of my desk, and then I rest the triangle on there. That'll give me good vertical lines, okay? Vertical over here, T-square tight on the edge of the desk, and another vertical line. So this is my border. Can we see that okay? So that's step 1, the border. The title block I'll get into more detail on later, but for now I'll just make a 1/2 inch title block. That's for your name, the date, the drawing number, and that's step number 1. And I always say right up here in the upper right corner, write 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you finish a step, like step number 1, the border and the title block, check it off. Now we go step number 2, centering box. So for the centering box, I have the measurements on here. They're also in the book. 1 1/4 on the sides, 1 inch on the top and the bottom. We want this centered on the page. So I go 1 1/4 inches on the side, and I do all my measuring at once. 1 1/4, 1 inch from the top. So it's so much faster if you lay out your measurements all at once, as long as you have the ruler in your hand, lay out the measurements, okay? Now I come over here, and and normally this would be very light, this centering box, okay? I'm doing it a little darker so that you can see it, but the centering box is basically the 3 views of the object, okay? We want them centered on the page here. So I look at here and I go, I want these 3 views centered on the page. I don't want them all the way down in the lower corner, lower left, lower right, upper. I want them centered on the page, okay? So remember, there's really 6 views of an object. You're all lazy middle school kids, so you don't have to do all 6 views, you just have to do 3. Top view, front view, right side view, okay? Those 3 centered on the page. It was just like as if you were to trace those views on here, but we're getting dimensions from the book and putting them on here. Now I go, centering box is done, so I check off step 2. All right, now I look at my sheet, it says step 3, complete the 2 given views inside the centering box. So I come over here and it tells us, hey, this object is 5 inches long, so I measure 5 inches long, boom, line here at 1 inch, and 1 1/2 inches thick. It's 2 1/2 inches tall, so I put that 2 1/2 inches tall. I lay out as much measuring as I can keep track of, okay? Almost done. Now I do my top view. Remember to do the vertical lines. Rest the triangle on the T-square, and there's my top view. Top view. Side view now. Side view, the depth is 1 1/2 inches thick. If it's 1 1/2 inches thick on the top, it is 1 1/2 inches thick on the side. So I know that it is going to be 1 1/2 inches thick, the depth of it. It is going to be 2 1/2 inches tall. I'm getting all these measurements from my sheet or in the book. Last step, I have to finish the 3rd view, okay? Remember, I check off these steps and I go complete the 2 given views inside the centering box. That's step 3. Step 4, complete the 3rd view by transferring the points. Label the views, label width, depth, and height. So, if my top view is 5 inches there, it's going to be 5 inches down here. If it's 2 1/2 inches tall over here, it's going to be 2 1/2 inches tall over here. So I line it up, I put my pencil point on here, and I go, well, it's 2 1/2 inches tall. It's 2 1/2 inches tall there. It's 5 inches long. So here, goes up 1/2 inch. And then at 1 inch in is the point where it starts to go down at an angle to this point and a half of an inch, and that's it. I have one more line to make, and this line is called a non-isometric line, so you just make that one connect the points, okay? So, label your views, top view, front view, side view. Label the dimensions, depth, width, and height. Whenever we label, like here, make a guideline so that your lettering is straight. Use all caps, side view, top, front, and then last but not least, label those dimensions, like width. This is the width dimension here. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but that's what the book calls it, width there. And you always have an extension line extending out. This one over here is the depth, and arrowheads on there. And then the last one, height, is how tall it is right here. You can just put an H for that. And I'm done. Okay, put arrowheads on there. Boom, boom. Here, have an extension line coming over. This should have come over farther, but you don't want your extension line. And then do everything light to start with, and then when you're all done, come back over, clean it up, make it look pretty. Okay? Done, and stop. So you got your 3 views on there, top view, front view, side view. You have the sheet here, the steps you need over there are written there, the tools you need are there. So remember, this is just like 3 views of the object, and then you unfold it. You have like the 3 views in 3-dimensional. These drawings here are 3 view, but they're only 2-dimensional. Each view shows 2 dimension. Top view shows width and depth. Side view here shows height and depth. Front view shows width and height.